My name is Brianna Mendoza. I'm doing a formal analysis on Nurse Elsa, which was created in 2002 by Richard Prince, who was known for making sensual and provocative paintings, and Nurse Elsa happened to be one of his most popular. So in this painting, we can see a beautiful masked woman whose facial features are somewhat blurred by subtle washes of white paint. Prince emphasizes in the gestural brushwork of his usual technique. Nurse Elsa was the leading role in the novel Prince gained inspiration from, which was called Conflict for Nurse Elsa, which you can still see emerging through the pink paint because this painting was made over the cover of the novel in order to bring out Nurse Elsa's character and make viewers wonder if she was a caregiver or a murderess. So to start with the analysis, we're going to start with line. And what I noticed was a mix of diagonal and vertical lines, which I thought implied a sort of uneasiness in the painting. And as you can see, the vertical lines were, the nurse herself is standing vertically in the painting and in a vertical position. And as you can see very closely, her coat has a vertical pattern on the chest area. And for the diagonal lines, I noticed, her shoulders were diagonal and, the V on her chest that the coat formed. I also noticed a mix between implied and actual lines. And as you can see on the V-neck part of her coat, the right part of that V from top to bottom starts off with an actual line, then goes down to an implied, and to the left from bottom to top starts off with an actual line and then goes up to an implied line. And going up to her cap, the very top of the cap is an actual line, and then the rest of the cap is made up of implied lines. And then going back down to her arm, we can see that most of it is made up of actual lines except for the part of the elbow. So if you look down to her elbow, you can see that it's made up of an implied line. And going back up on her arm, on her hand, you can see that her hand is made up of implied lines as well. And now we're going to move on to color. So as we view the painting from bottom to top, we see that the pink hue intensifies. So we go from from bottom to top, we go from an eggplant color to a sort of smoky amethyst to a bubblegum purple. And the overall temperature of this painting, in my opinion, is somewhat cold because of the dark purplish colors that the painting starts off with on the bottom. And the color scheme of the painting is obviously pink and purple. And now we're going to move on to space. So as you can see around the nurse, there is a lot of space, which brings up a sort of negativity in the painting. And as for the focal point, I thought it was pretty obvious that it was the nurse who was the focal point because of the empty space that was around her, and the contrast that we have from that eggplant color to the bubblegum pink color, which I thought drew more attention to the nurse. And if you notice on the very top, the N in the word nurse kind of has a diagonal that points to her. So that was another thing that I thought made it obvious that she was the focal point of the painting. And to conclude my analysis, I'll be talking about scale. So in my opinion, Prince used scale by making the nurse larger than anything else in the painting, which he made sure we could still see through the paint that he put over it. And what I mean by this are the words conflict for Nurse Elsa and the man to her right, which we can't really see his facial features, but we know it's a man because of the structure of his head and his hair. And he made sure that she'd be larger than both of those. And that concludes my analysis.